Hello everyone, my name is Oskar Lagerosen and I'm the founder of The Total Living. Now I would like to read out loud the 11th blog post in the One Glance article series covering what your life really consists of. So let's dive right into it. Because we have now arrived at tasks and projects, which is a way to subdivide your work and life. However, we need to define them extremely clearly since they are essential parts of the One Glance system. Therefore, allow me to take you to a tour de force to the most bottom level of your experience universe, and from there, make a case for what tasks really are, why they are the building blocks of your entire existence, and what it means in practice. This article, this video, and this episode is also a lot longer than usual, but it is necessary in order to provide an understanding of what your life really is. So buckle your seatbelt because this is going to be a wild ride. The fundamental question to life, the universe, and everything is, what does your life really consist of? Just like you consist of body parts, which in turn consists of cells, which in turn consists of atoms, photons, etc., you can deduce down your whole life to more fundamental levels. And our illustrative example is brushing your teeth, something you do regularly. However, the simple act of brushing your teeth consists of multiple complicated but practiced actions. You apply gentle and regular force and movement to each tooth, going from one side to the other. From a deeper level, you're deciding via habit to go either left or right and move from one tooth to the other. Your brain informs your arm, which in turn acts accordingly. Go to the deepest level and we come to the thought level. You have the thought, the vaguest intention of experiencing your toothbrush at a particular place, and in the next millisecond, the toothbrush is there. If you're brushing your teeth in standard 2 minutes, each thought and reaction occur in a much, much smaller time frame. Seconds are not even correct to measure since you usually can have a lot of thoughts in one session. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see the various levels of brushing your teeth. We can go from either on above, brushing your teeth, all the way to think of move it left or right. All these are true. All of these are true rather, but on many different scales, so to speak. But we are allowed to go relative in terms of time since Einstein has proven so with the theory of relativity and stuff like that. You can experience time differently based on several factors that I won't cover here. However, even if brushing your teeth took longer than 2 minutes for some reason, we are still dealing with the event of brushing your teeth. The event has a clear start, which is no brushed teeth, and a clear end, which is all brushed teeth. We can define an event as an occurrence that happens on a conscious level. So you can see here different kinds of events, and these events can be further deduced. Just as we went from brushing teeth to the thought of experiencing your toothbrush at a slightly different place, these fleeting and fugacious thoughts occur on way smaller time span than just one whole event. However, you're still experiencing somewhat consciously. Thus, we can conclude that you can ultimately break down the building blocks of events to the period of thought. One thought is still one event, although on the smallest scale. Therefore, the initial answer of what does your life really consist of are the smallest possible events. And you can see on the smallest level, I call them atom events. And theoretically, we can go even deeper, such as photon events, quark events, etc. But we will limit ourselves to what we consciously experience for practical purposes. So let's take another less boring example than brushing teeth. Writing a book can be boiled down to chapters, sections, paragraphs, and sentences. However, even there, you still have your thoughts and notes running around, omnipresence, thinking of how to best express yourself next. Based on your notes, you're on the thought level, comparing multiple ways of saying a thing. You experience both the act of typing, the thought of writing it down, and your internal directions or doubts on what to write next. Therefore, as you can see at the bottom, writing ultimately boils down to the Adam events of experiencing different thoughts after another. Want another example? You can also reduce a conversation with your best friends to many levels. From the physical manifestation to you two together in one place, we can divide it into the back and forth dialogue in both sentences, words, tone, and facial expressions. Internally, you listen and attend to your friend, come up with the best responses, and then utter these words. Even then, you're still having the thoughts showing up, from listening to your friend to internalizing what it means, what he or she just said, to your reaction, to what to say next, to think of how it might sound to your friend, and then saying it, etc., etc., all the way down to experience different thoughts and different attention after another. However, these Adam events are still kind of static and uncontrollable. We need something more actionable, something we can be in charge of. And thus we have outcome and action. Because let us return to you brushing your teeth again. We mentioned an end state of having all of your teeth brushed. Then you also are physically brushing your teeth to make it happen. We can call the end goal of having brushed teeth the outcome, which you can see on the top if you're watching this video. The outcome is what you want to accomplish. And the act of brushing your teeth itself is the action, which you can see on the bottom. It is something that you physically do. And David Allen, the founder of Getting Things Done, calls it the zeros and ones of productivity. And I will explain why. Because as you can see, both the outcome and action are interlinked. They are moving around in a circle, and they cannot exist separately. There cannot be an outcome without action, and action without an outcome. To have brushed teeth, you have to, believe it or not, brush them. At the same time, if you brush your teeth long enough, you will eventually end up with brushed teeth, unless you are doing some interesting way of brushing teeth. I don't know. Anyways, you might still argue that you can still do stuff without having an outcome in mind. And that is true, except that there will be an outcome nonetheless. Even if you're walking down the streets aimlessly, you cannot ignore that you have produced an outcome of being in a different place compared to where you started. Whether the outcome was intended or not, it is still an outcome. And outcome and actions exist on many levels to make it even more complicated, many different scales. We have, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube on the picture, we have the outcome of having your teeth brushed, wanting to have your teeth brushed, and the action being the brushing itself. However, a smaller outcome could be want to brush his tooth, want to apply small movements with the toothbrush, want to move the toothbrush left or right, and all the way down to having the thought of experiencing your toothbrush at a different place, or want to think of moving it left to the right. And you can see here at the other side, the action follows suit, which leads to the outcome, and etc. And the finest level of outcome, as you can see at the bottom, is once again on the thought level, together with the Adam events. You have the outcome of having the thought of experience your toothbrush to one particular place of the tooth, and action ultimately becomes that you have the thought of experiencing your toothbrush to one particular place at the tooth. I know it's getting quite sophisticated, but bear with me. I call this the most fundamental type of outcome and action for Adam outcome and Adam action, since they operate within Adam events. And even there, we can theoretically go even deeper and discuss free will and stuff like that, but we will limit ourselves to what is consciously for practical purposes. Maybe in another video, I can elaborate more on that, but for now, let's stick to the conscious. And then we have other examples of the different outcomes and actions moving down from the more, what could you say, the highest level, all the down to the Adam level. From want to write a book, writing a book, all the way down to want to experience a thought and then another, because you want to have the decision making, you want to evaluate what to write a sentence, paragraph, etc. And we can also see it on the conversation, because you can have the conversation and have the conversation, but in the conversation, you're addressing different topics. You want to listen and speak. You want to internalize the message and come up with the best response to all of that, just like a ping pong game. And ultimately, it comes down to you thinking of what you're going to say next and how to interpret it, etc. In other words, want to experience a thought and then another, and the action becoming experiencing a thought and then another. So we have now arrived at an improved answer to what your life really consists of. The answer is Adam outcomes and Adam actions contained in Adam events. In layman terms, the thoughts you want to experience and the thoughts you experience. But yeah, I know what you're already thinking. What is the point of all of this? How does this eccentric way of Adam outcomes, Adam actions relate to my work? Do I even need to know all of that every day and so on and so forth? But just relax. Just like you usually are not thinking about yourself as a batch of atoms all the time, you do not need to be aware of these fundamental levels every day. My point is that everything that you experience, whether it's work or non-work, whatever it means, can be boiled down to the level of thoughts. Regardless of whether you're comfortable with it or not, the reality persists. In addition, just as nuclear reactors produce astronomical amounts of energy by cleaving atoms, you can gain tremendous energy and leverage by operating in a more fundamental levels of experience. And after one glance is complete, the next article series will be about total engagement, which dives deeper into how you can consciously operate from the Adam level of your existence and thus experience unlimited amounts of power and joy, like nuclear power without the junk. So it's very cool, I can say. But we are not finished with one glance yet, far from it. And a fully incorporated one glance system is crucial before you can even start thinking about total engagement. So if all of that what I just said sounds very exciting and something that you really want, something that you should want, by the way, you should want your best life, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, the podcast, and also in the link to the original article, there is a 100% free newsletter, so you can be informed on how to gain the ultimate control of your life and get whatever you want and ultimately be more happy and fulfilled. But back to where we were before, because we need something more practical to operate from now, because it's highly impractical to divide our work only from the thoughts. We have spent, and you can probably agree with this, far too long in this existential metaphysical realms and need to get back to our day-to-day experience without existential worry of like atoms and all that stuff. And this is why I didn't want to just end this video episode here, because at the end of the day, I want to give you something very practical, so you don't need to worry about anything. But we need something more tangible that we now have the necessary Lego blocks and power to construct, which all leads us to tasks. And if you're seeing the screen on YouTube, you will soon experience what the task means. Because you've probably heard about the word tasks. Oxford Languages defines task as a piece of work to be done or undertaken. However, I believe that this definition is problematic since we are unsure what work and done means here. We need a more specific definition for our purposes. But fortunately, we have established an understanding of ADAM outcomes and ADAM actions. We also know that each activity can be broken down and synthesized to various levels containing its previous level. And like a fractal, there exist multiple outcomes and actions in everything, from the lowest possible ones, which are atoms, to the highest, which are massive goals and even societal changes. However, we cannot call a societal change for a task if we want to be specific. I mean, really. Therefore, we need to establish an upper bound for the right level of the task. Because let us now once again revisit this by now sacred act of brushing your teeth. We could set the upper bound of the classic 2-minute brushing and then finish. But most likely, as you will see here, you're probably doing it in tight connection with other activities, such as your breakfast and part of evening routine. As you can see here, you're brushing teeth, then turn off the lamps and lying in bed, all within the activity of going to bed. So we could proclaim that the act of brushing teeth is a small part of a bigger task, which in this case is the evening routine. And realistically, you would perceive the routines and not necessarily put too much thought into the toothbrush itself as a single standalone activity. So there is a larger outcome than that the evening routine and brushing teeth is a part of, which could be considered its own task. And I believe that you should also focus on the highest outcome when you want to define the task, as high of outcome as possible, since it's more practical to think about going to bed rather than just moving your toothbrush. You want to operate from more practical standpoints in general. So you want to aim high, both literally and figuratively. And if you can achieve the highest outcome with fewer actions, by the way, you are by definition more productive. But we still have the question, what is the upper bound? How far up the levels can I set the outcome and still call it a task? Because societal changes were out of the question. So to answer this question, we need to introduce the concept of sessions, which you can see on the most, on the upper corner of, if you're watching on YouTube. And Oxford Languages defines session as a period devoted to a particular activity. In other words, a specific context with specific tools and objectives at a specific time. And there are many examples of sessions, such as 60 to 90 minutes of focused work before doing something else. And you also have meetings. Sessions can be meals, walks, phone calls, presentations, concerts, workouts, a particular routine such as going to bed and sleep. And what characterizes these sessions are the absence of ambiguity. It is clear when the meeting begins and ends. It is clear when the time starts and runs out of doing your work. It's also clear when your meal is served and finished. So for session, it's quite easy to figure out, like, here is when the session starts, and here's when the session ends. So quite very easy to grapple with. And we can say that we finally have a reasonable upper bound for tasks, which are the session length. In other words, if a particular outcome requires more than one session, it is no longer a task, but a project. On the other hand, projects are like one step at scale, consist of both sessions and tasks. And I want to highlight another reason for setting the upper bound at session length, because that is task switching. Research shows the detrimental health effects of switching tasks rapidly without giving time to save the previous work, causing stress in the brain and body. By doing a successful and thorough exit, which if you watch the previous video about entry and exit in the One Glance series, or the episode for that matter, you can check back it again, because there will be more info about entry and exit. And you can, if you've done this good exit, you can switch to the next session without any worry of mental clutter. However, if you need to exit and are still not finished, you need to come back later to this activity, and thus it becomes a project. But as you can read if you're watching on YouTube, tasks do not need to take up an entire session. You can group small tasks into one focused batch, as long as the tasks are different from each other, like small to-dos quickly done at one sitting, like batching them together, various errands you like run from one store to another, but you're still like going and shopping, etc. And a thorough house cleaning, which is like doing the vacuum cleaner and then cleaning all the things that needs to be cleaned and stuff like that. Many different activities, but could still be called house cleaning, so one task. So as long as the highest feasible outcome is within one session, it qualifies as a task. The less time required to do a task, the better, because of your increased productivity. And I'll come back to it in later videos and episodes. So our definition of a task is therefore the highest practical desired outcome that can be achieved within one session. You decide what the practical desired outcome is. It could be either toothbrushing or the entire routine. For writing, the particular session with its objective constitutes a task. For instance, you want to write in a particular place and particular length in a particular time. That is a task. And also conversing with your friend, your desired goal of mutual understanding, updates, and joy constitute a task, because you want something to get out of this interaction, whether it's more information or more appreciation, etc. But I have to say that we are still not done with the task, but almost. There are two different types of tasks, which are repeated and novel. Repeated tasks are tasks that show up regularly. For instance, you brush your teeth in the same way twice daily, hopefully, and you sleep once every 24 hours, hopefully, you eat, etc. Routines, workout regimens, and standard Monday meetings are repeated tasks. They are within one session and they occur on a predictable basis. Novel tasks show up for the first time, or very rarely again. It could be a new to-do, a new piece to write, something you need to purchase, a call with someone else, or a non-regular visit to your friend. Practically speaking, novel tasks are everything else except for repeated tasks. Everything that is not a habit that you still need to do within one session is a novel task. And then we have projects. Projects are the next level of novel tasks. If you cannot finish a novel task within one session, it is a project by default that is tracked specifically in the One Glance system, together with planned novel tasks. Habits, procedures, and areas, in other words, are the next level of repeated tasks over a large time frame. So you can see here, if you're watching YouTube, there are 2, and there could be more sessions in which you have the same task, same novel task, repeating on different occasions. This is what the project is. And most of the repeated tasks do not need to be tracked at all outside your calendar. They are already occurring and you know what to do. Novel tasks, on the other hand, need extra clarity and tracking, which is what the next articles will elaborate upon. So a quick summary of definitions, because we have by now introduced a lot of new concepts and definitions. And in the article, you will see a very clear bullet point list in the end, showing everything. But I will read it to you right here. Event. The definition of event is an occurrence in your conscious experience of time. An ADAM event is the smallest possible event on the thought level, because that's the smallest possible event. Outcome is the end state of action, what you want to achieve on multiple levels. ADAM outcome is the smallest possible end state of action, which could be like the desire and wish to have the thought of X. I know it's very granular, but that's what ADAMs are at the end. Action is defined as whatever happens to realize the outcome. ADAM action are the smallest possible action. For instance, like the thought pops up. And yeah, it's still on a very granular level. A session is a period devoted to a particular activity. A task, and once again, it comes down to how I define the task, or the highest practical desired outcome that can be achieved within one session. And then we have novel tasks and repeated tasks. Novel tasks are unique tasks that show up for the first time or very rarely again. Repeated tasks, on the other hand, are tasks that are predictable, identical, and reoccurring. And then we have the project, which are the amplification of novel tasks. It is a desired outcome that requires more than one session of novel tasks. And lastly, we have habit and procedure, which are repeated occurrences throughout a larger time span. So in conclusion, I want to say congratulations. Please pat yourself on the back if you've read this far, because you now know what your life is on the most fundamental level, and from there obtained a solid understanding of why tasks are the most optimal and practical unit of experience. You have also got an understanding of sessions, the difference between repeated and novel tasks, and what it means in practice with multiple examples. And think of that when brushing your teeth next time, that you go down to the ADAM levels and back. Sorry for that. But however, there is a lot to cover for novel tasks and projects and the weekly view. So the next 7 or 9 videos and episodes on One Glance, which is released every Monday to Friday, will be devoted to more elaboration. However, they will not be as long as this video and this episode. It was a very long one, but I felt that it was more convenient for you to have the end clear, so you are not in the existential worry of atoms and stuff like that, that we could go down the journey all the way down to the atoms and then come back again to more practical advice. Tomorrow's post will go deeper into projects, because there is more left to be said about projects. If you like this unusually long video, unusually long episode, and the article series for that matter, and wish that your friends could live a stress-free and productive life as well, please share it, because they probably want to know as well what their lives really are, especially if they are, for some reason, not feeling as great with their life. You could inform them on how to really control your life. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter, as I previously said, and also subscribe to the YouTube and podcast. And with that, I want to say thank you for your attention, and we see you tomorrow. Have a great day.